Welcome to another Lightning Strikes Twice, where we go super fast and we have 5 minutes apiece, one topic apiece. So it comes out to roughly 10 minutes ish. So take it away with the first topic there, Mr. Eric.
Okie dokie. I was watching this video recently from a channel called Future Proof, where like they're sort of kind of eco-conscious, talk about like consumerism and things. Like a lot of their videos have to deal with that. And within the video, the guy like highlighted this service that I didn't know existed out there. But I guess there's a service where not only can you rent clothing, but you can rent furniture too temporarily. Like, oh yeah, furnish your house. You just rent it and then you return it, and somebody else can rent it. And his point was like it's very eco-conscious, and stuff. What do you think about that idea?
Um, so I have known about that for a long time. Do you remember when we had our shop and there was like that water jug that we got, like the dispenser?
Yeah.
Well, we would go fill water at that place near the Goodwill on 6th Avenue. And that same building on the side facing the street was a place called Aaron's. And that's what they did. They rented furniture.
Oh wow.
And I always thought to myself, who wants to do that? Like other people's asses all over, like sweating all over the couch,
Yeah. Well, and his point, and which I think is a very valid one, is that if we altered our culture to be more in terms of like just renting a lot of things, especially things that are ephemeral, right? If something like fashion or furniture styles or whatever, where you don't really buy it and then throw it away, you rent it and then you return it and somebody else rents it. So his point was, if we started doing that more and more, it would encourage companies to make things better quality, right? Like build things to last rather than to be just thrown away. Because we live right now in a very disposable society. People basically, everything is built to be used once and tossed, essentially. Even technology like phones and stuff. I mean, people don't
Yeah.
hang on to their cell phone for 10 years or anything. I mean, my oven downstairs is from like the 60s or something, and it still works and I still use it. Like, maybe if we shifted our focus more towards that kind of to like renting certain things.
Yeah.
Um, I love thrifting. I love the concept of thrifting. I think that is like the epitome of eco consciousness is like when it comes to recycling. Like you're actually
Right.
reusing a thing. You donate something to some thrift store and they put it on a shelf and somebody buys it and they use it and they probably donate it back to the same thrift store again.
Yeah. I mean, all jokes aside, I actually think that's a great idea. Like, especially um, one thing I always keep in mind is like, do I really need to buy this tool? Or for the one time I probably will ever need it, do I just go rent it?
Yep. And like here in the States, we have AutoZone, which has essentially free tool rental. Like a lot of this stuff, I don't know if they rent like a socket, but like the more expensive tools that you might buy once, like a scan tool or some kind of diagnostic thing or a specialized whatever. Like, yeah, it makes sense to, like, for me, I want to have all the tools so that when I need to do something, I don't have to go rent something. But that's just me. I mean, like, that's what I do. But for the average person, yeah, it makes sense to, like, why would you go buy something and then what do you do with it after that? You know, like just go rent it. And like, I've rented a lot of stuff from AutoZone and like, yeah, it's a used thing. But actually the cool thing about that is you have the option. If you just never return it, it's yours. And if you
Yeah.
return it, you get a full refund. So it's like it's basically free. And and you could return it whenever the hell you want. So it's like if you have this project where you might need to use that tool and you don't know how long, it isn't costing you more per day. It's just like, well, it's just whenever you want to return it. And
Yeah.
and that's brilliant. Like I love that idea. It like it's cool because like yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we don't need to own or to purchase. And I like the concept of renting by purchasing, but then being able to just fully return it. Now, obviously, when you have clothing, there's a lot of service that is needed to happen behind the scenes. So, like, okay, that makes more sense for that to be sort of a monthly cost or whatever, or there to be a fee for that. But yeah, like I don't know why we don't do that more. Like it just makes
Yeah.
sense, and have really high quality stuff. It's like you could totally furnish your house with like the finest furniture out there for relatively cheap. And then, when your whims change, just return it and rent something else. It's kind of
Yeah.
genius.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, there have been times where I was like, yeah, I wish I had like a dining room table, but never really ever would have a need for it on the day to day. So something like that would
Yeah.
make sense if I wanted to have a dinner party or something.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's exactly where this like totally makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Only thing is, it's like kind of a pain in the ass that like, yeah, I got to make room for it and arrange a time to be home and somebody can bring it
That
to you, which
that's
I hope they
true.
at least
Oh,
do that.
that's time. But yeah, yeah, that is a good point. And maybe, that could be a part of a service that maybe if you don't want to deal with it, they'll deal with it for you for a cost. It's like, you know what? I don't want to deal with it. Just figure it out. And they'll be
Mhm.
like, yep, all right, $100 and we'll rearrange your whole living room or something like that. That, yeah, kind of a interesting concept.
Uh-huh.
So, what do you have in mind?
Let's see. I've had this one on the list for a while, and we'll see how this goes. It might be a little bit large of a topic, but
Oh, that's we never avoid that.
okay. So this is kind of a science sort of question,
Mhm.
but have you heard of and what do you think of human monkey chimeras?
I think I've heard of it. Maybe before I start the timer, refresh my memory because it's kind of murky as far as what you're
So
referring to.
chimera is Greek, I believe,
Hmm.
for like two things joined together,
Yeah, yeah.
essentially. So it's basically playing God with genes and
Okay, so like
making,
a unicorn essentially, right, or something
yeah,
combined,
like a
or
human
a
monkey hybrid.
centaur or something is a chimera.
Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, it's China doing this, and they're they're not making like living creatures running around that are half monkey and half human.
Mhm.
It's more like a cell growth sort of
Okay.
thing, like to utilize certain benefits that come with that, which we don't have to go into right now. But
Mhm.
from an ethical standpoint, there's a whole lot of hullabaloo about this. So
Yeah, okay, I see where you're going now. Okay. Man, I can see where the ethical dilemma is, in that, people, well, and maybe a lot of it has to do with science fiction and stuff that people imagine that the craziest, most wackadoodle outcome when what you're talking about is just like it's a small scale sort of thing. They're not making actual animals. Um, but I can also definitely see the value in doing that.
yeah,
As it like as long as it isn't turned into a full scale. Well, maybe who knows? Maybe a full scale, like letting it grow into a full being, might end up being kind of useful or cool or something. I mean,
well, I was going to ask that, like, what if it got to the gestational phase where we all already have these arguments about where life begins as humans,
mhm.
and then now you introduce, let's call this Tuvix, um, and you have to ask yourself, like, does this have like human rights? Does it have? I mean, like, I think every living thing should be treated with a certain set of rights, of course,
Yeah, I
but
agree. I agree with that. That there's sort
like,
of like
how do you treat a thing such as Tuvix?
Well, I mean, I would say, especially if something is sentient. And now, of course, we can. That's a whole different tangent there. But let's
Yeah,
say we could determine sentience. If something is sentient, I think it would, especially if it's able to express itself in some way, like communicate and things. Like it should have the same rights as humans expect
yeah,
to have. I think we should give it nothing less. And the same thing goes with AI and stuff. It's like it should have the same rights,
yeah.
because like like what? Why would we have those rights? Uh, you know, we can't proclaim that we're endowed with certain inalienable rights, um, if we don't, you know, do that for others, for other living things,
You know,
especially similar to us.
just for shits and giggles, we should take these human monkey chimeras and experiment with them and turning them into cyborgs. So we have these human monkey cyborg pissed off chimera things running around. That's a great idea, right?
No, sure, sure, yeah.
Nothing
What could
goes wrong with
possibly
that.
go wrong there?
I mean, like if the biology plays nice together, which more than likely it would be being so closely related
Hmm.
in the primate scheme of things.
Yeah.
Um, there's no reason to think it would suffer in its life if it were treated like a normal person, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I would treat it that way. Like the
And
same thing with AI and robots and stuff like that. If they're getting close to sentient, it's like, yeah, I will be respectful. I mean, even Chat GPT, I'm always respectful and say thank you and
and
stuff
like
like
a
that.
mule, it's probably not going to be able to have offspring of its own. So there's no real worry of like playing God effectively. Like
Hmm.
to me, playing God would be like if you created a whole species that could survive on its own, you know? But
Yeah.
like to create one that will just, if that's the only one you ever created, that's it, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
It's a little bit like Data, basically,
yeah,
you know, from Star Trek.
but
For those.
yeah, but I mean, if they're just doing this to the cell phase and it's furthering research, I really don't see a problem with that.
I don't either. I don't know what the issue even would be. It's like we're exploring, you
Right.
know. That's part of what humans do. That's how we got where we are now, is by exploring. So more power to them. If they want to investigate and test these things, like, go ahead. You
Yeah.
know,
It
it's,
it's like the embryonic stem cell argument, effectively.
I
I
was
mean,
gonna say.
really is the same thing, actually. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about the same like stages of development
Mm-hmm.
from this point of conception, if you will, even though
Well,
it's a petri dish sort of thing.
yeah, exactly. Well, I think the misgivings that people have over stuff like this comes from ignorance, like not really understanding what's going on and just assuming it's like a thing that they think it is, right? Like the sci-fi crazy off the wall sort of thing,
Right.
when it's like it's actually quite mundane. Yeah.
Man, bear,
Well,
pig.
man, bear, pig, yeah, exactly. Oh man, well, that's time. That's a good one, man. That there, yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah, you
potential.
can read up on that.
Mhm.
It's not science fiction.
I know. That yeah, I did hear something about that, but I didn't really know all the details. So I'm definitely intrigued now. So I'll be certainly looking that up more. And yeah, that's a really, really, really good topic. I think both of these
Well,
were actually,
yeah.
as usual. We always come out with bangers. And there's never enough time. I was actually thinking today, about something like we should have like an overtime option if the topic is like really rolling along, that we could occasionally add another 5 minutes,
Yeah.
you know, just re-up it, but not all the time, because yeah, that would kind of defeat the purpose. But yeah, all right, good, good thing. So well, everybody, hang out and watch all our other videos in anticipation gleeful anticipation of next week's Lightning Strikes Twice because it'll be just as good as, if not better, than this one.
Kaboom.